Welcome to another week of Unfiltered. This is the week of August 25th. That's right, the last week of August before we roll into Labor Day. And man, oh man, it's been quite a summer. We've had a little bit of everything. We've had mostly hot weather, a lot of rainy weather this year. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that possibly getting so much moisture over the summer, we won't get as much moisture over the winter. There we go. What else has been going on? The eye is healing up pretty good. Still little focusy issues right now, but middle of next month I'll go and get full eye exam, get my glasses replaced, and then we'll be doing good. Let's go over here. Maybe not so much for a rant, but just because that's a cool camera over here. A cool camera. And that's where I put my timer. So this way I can keep track of where I am in the show. And I'm still, I can see that timer pretty good now. Which is amazing because, 2 months ago, I could see nothing over here. Over the weekend, I listened to a great podcast, the Joe Rogan podcast. I don't know if any of you, some of you may be familiar with Joe Rogan. He, stand-up comedian. He hosted Fear Factor back in 80s, I believe, which was a cool show. And now he does a podcast. And it's a cool podcast because it's generally him and one other person, or him and two other people, and it's just a conversation. Sometimes they're anywhere between an hour and 20 minutes, I think was one of his shorter ones, to 3.5 hours. Yeah. So over the weekend, I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast, and he had Neil deGrasse Tyson as a guest. A 3-hour conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let me tell you, some of the most interesting stuff I've ever heard. For instance, according to Mr. Tyson, or Dr. Tyson, I should say, I believe he's a doctor. If you shrunk the Earth down to the size of a cue ball, it would be smoother to the touch than any cue ball ever machined. Think about that for a minute. And then think of the scale. Because, as he explained, Mount Everest is the highest point on Earth. It is 28,000 and change, 29,000 and change. That's almost 6 miles. The Marianas Trench out in the ocean, the lowest point of the Earth's crust, is just about 6 miles deep. So that's a 12-mile difference from the highest point to the lowest point on the Earth's crust. 12 miles. The Earth has a diameter of 80,000 miles or something? So in comparison, that 11 miles, and remember, shrink it down, smoother than any cue ball ever milled. Imagine that. That's kind of cool. Another part that he got to that this may lead into a little bit of a rant, but not a rant for me, but a rant from all you Trump haters. Because This is actually, it was the third reference to this that I have heard in the past 6 months. Different sources. First source was President Trump. When President Trump said, "We need a space force," then everybody went bonkers. What do you mean we need a space force? What for a Star Trek? And of course, people are idiots, because their minds went to one place. Star Wars, Star Trek, you know, all those stupid science fiction shows that they've seen over the years. And because Trump said it, it was extremely asinine, apparently. Let me fill you in on a couple of facts. That in this conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson was brought up. And which the second, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson was the third time in 6 months that I'd heard about this. Another was a book called The Next 100 Years. And I can't remember who the author is. I'll look it up while we're talking. It's The Next 100 Years. And that talked about some of the next great battles being over space. Neil deGrasse Tyson brought up the fact that we already have a space force. See, some of you people didn't even know, did you? A lot of you people are thinking NASA, but it's not NASA. NASA is a separate government agency. We have a space force. It is called the United States Space Command, and it is a part of the United States Air Force. Just so you folks know, the United States is a signatory on an actual space treaty from 1967. A space treaty. That's right, and we signed a space treaty. And apparently the space treaty says that we'll be nice to each other out in space. If an astronaut is stranded in outer space or something happens in outer space, countries won't matter. You know, we'll all go to the rescue. We'll all try and help to the best of our abilities. It also says we won't put any offensive weapons in space. Defensive weapons are all right. Reagan tried that with the Space Defense Initiative. People thought he was crazy. He wanted to put some kind of system out in space where we could intercept incoming missiles. Offensive weapons in space don't really make any sense. The way that Neil deGrasse Tyson explained it was because if you put bombs on a satellite and you want the satellite to bomb wherever you want it to bomb, a certain city, satellites don't just go willy-nilly around the sky. Satellites are in a certain orbit. They only pass over certain places. So unless that place you wanted to bomb was directly under where your satellite was going to cross over, it wouldn't be any good. In 2001, Neil deGrasse Tyson was a part of a committee, and I can't remember what the committee was that he said that was studying space stuff, because that's what astrophysicists do. He suggested a space force. 2001. There was no guffawing, there was no laughing, there was no, what a friggin' idiot. There was none of that speak. We're going to, damn it, I lost this again. Never mind. The Next 100 Years is the book that I read, and it basically lays out, it's kind of a predictor as from using history and the way that things are today, predicting what the next 100 years will be like for us. And spoiler alert, no flying cars. Sorry. Sorry. All right. So let's get back to this Space Force thing, because this is fantastic. And a lot of people are thinking, oh, here you go, you're going to get off on the crazy train now. Woo-woo, here we go. Before World War II, there was no Air Force. The United States Air Force did not exist before the Second World War. Trying to think, even during the Second World War, during some of the Second World War, maybe. I can't remember when they separated it. But they were a part of the Army. It was the Army Air Force, the Army Air Corps. They were part of the Army until it was realized that aviation and ground tactics, command and control, the whole ball of yarn, were different. Different type of soldiers, because you didn't need soldiers anymore, you needed pilots and airplane mechanics and things like that. So the Air Force was born out of the Army. The Air Force does crap loads of research and development on space type stuff. That is the United States Space Command and the research and development. Again, United States Space Command is already, I'll say this again for you naysayers, United States Space Command is already a part of the United States Air Force. Just as the United States Air Force was once the Army Air Corps before they separated out, United States Space Command is part of the United States Air Force. Yes. So we already have a Space Force. But the equipment, the tactics, the skills, the type of people that are going to be needed to operate in space is completely different than flying in the atmosphere and on Earth. Yeah. So I can understand where eventually we will see a Space Force. Because look how much stuff we're putting up there. Expensive stuff. And you can't just blow up satellites in outer space that are in orbit, because that debris is still there, And that debris could likely knock out your satellites. So we won't ever shoot missiles and blow up somebody else's satellite because the debris from that satellite might wipe out our satellites. See how that all works? It's going to be a huge thing. Look at any technology that you use, chances are, was thought up by a scientist, was developed by the military, and then it was turned over to the public sector. Neil deGrasse Tyson used GPS as one of his examples. GPS was basically in the early days, in the days of when did he say it started? Ancient Islam, I believe. They had navigation equipment that they could navigate. They navigated by the stars. The same way that Columbus and those early explorers navigated. By the stars. The position of the sky in relationship to where they were. Now we have satellites that can tell us exactly where we are. So that technology was developed. That whole, sextant and compass and sextant thing, all that was developed by the military into computer systems, automated systems, so you didn't have to pull out your compass. You just pull out your little GPS device, and then it'll use the satellites and tell you where you are. And it was originally intended in more recent years for the military to be able to figure out where they were and where they were going. And now we use it for dating apps. Great useful technology that we waste on stupid crap. We use GPS to go down the highway. All right. The other one that he mentioned was the Hubble telescope. And the development of the Hubble telescope, which has, increased our knowledge by billions probably. The fact that when the Hubble telescope went up, there were already working models of such a telescope already in operation by the U.S. military, only instead of being pointed up, they were pointed at the Earth. Yeah. You know the ones I'm talking about, the ones that, take all the pictures that you see in TV, that they can blow right up and see, see a Jeep from space that's carrying, 5 pounds of yellow cake uranium. I don't know. But, you can't just slough off somebody's comment as being idiotic when 40 years ago or 50 years ago, nobody thought we'd be able to do this. In the 1960s, when Star Trek came out, people looked at that computer and flip open, Star Trek Enterprise, that kind of crap. People were like, well, that would be really cool if we had those. What a dumb idea. Now we got them on our hip all day long. You can't separate them from us. us from them. Or them from us. And again, they're trackable, so people can watch your every move, whoever it might want to be. Again, there was a thing a while ago about, or maybe it was fairly recent, I think, where I heard about the military is wondering about the whole cell phone, laptop, GPS stuff, because not only can we know where our people are, but the enemy can know where our people are as well by looking at GPS stuff. You know? It's kind of dumb. What else is going on? We're back to like full meeting schedule again. With the city committees starting this week, Wednesday and Thursday night. Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, Thursday night at 7 o'clock. I've got a rare Tuesday night off this week because there's no Keene School Board Policy Committee this week. So I get a little break from school board for this week. But back to the regular grind with all the city meetings and school board. It won't be long, another month and a half to 2 months, they'll be starting into their budget process and going through all that again for my 8th or 9th year at covering that stuff with Cheshire TV. What other news? I will have some big airport stuff next week. That's right. That's right. Just a little hint. Get ready for a little history. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll talk about that at the beginning of next week's show. Yeah, because actually, I'm taping this on Monday this week because Tuesday morning I have an airport marketing committee meeting down at the airport, and so I want to get through that meeting, and then I'll bring the news to you as far as Keene Airport goes, and I think you'll like it. So let's go back over here, and because we're rolling down on time, and I don't know if I'm going to make it the full half hour or not. Because again, I spent the weekend doing, basically not a lot, and I like it that way. And sometimes I like it that way. Gearing up because I'm starting to get the little cabin fever after being down with this eye thing. So I may make a trip this coming weekend. Being how it's a long weekend, I may go down to Pennsylvania for a day and check in with the boys from Hallow Creek. Get some band video and some band shots of them guys. Provided the weather's good, because I want to do outdoor stuff. So anyway, other than that, just what can I say? I try and say the same stuff every week. Try and be good to each other. That's the only thing you can do in life that will make life worthwhile is just be good to somebody else. That will spread. It's like paying it forward. You be nice to somebody, and guess what? They'll be nice to somebody, and then that other person will be nice to somebody, and before you know it, we'll just all be nice to everybody. I know, what an idiot, Rick Blood. How can you hope for world peace and the fact that everybody will be nice to everybody? I don't know, it's just me. Anyway, I guess that's it for now, because I'm obviously rambling when I start talking like that. Until next time, I'm Rick Blood. This is Unfiltered. Peace.